Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce McDonald. It's 9:29 p.m., Saturday, the 29th of March, and this is the Talamanca Review. Boy, I've been taking a look at some of the podcasts since I came back from Panama, and I'm just on fire here, man. I don't know what happened. I think there's something about this energetic shift at the beginning of March that just sort of is affecting the way I podcast and what I talk about. But I watch them, or parts thereof, right? 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. I myself am struck by how poignant and insightful and layered and poetic they are. You know, it's like a first draft verbal poem, like Shark Tank and Tragedy as Spiritual Pornography and a number of others. So I'm pretty happy with the way this is going. And remember, for the most part, I just sit down. I don't have anything planned. Sometimes I might have, like, Tragedy as Spiritual Pornography. That was planned, but all I had in my head was just the concept. How I was going to explain it to you folks just came out when I sat in front of the microphone. And I like doing it this way. I like that things just come out so honestly and so raw. And I want to say, I'm not trying to scare anybody. You know? Bob and I were talking about this morning on a WhatsApp call. And I said, what do you think would happen if I ever turned my hand to horror writing and decided to take a run at Stephen King? And we both decided that I would probably institutionalize people, and it wasn't a good idea. But the point is, I will never, ever sell myself or sell anything in this forum when I'm talking to people for benefit of self. Because I think it's a sin. I think it's bad karma. I think it's negative. It literally disgusts me the way everything has been tied up in money now. Such a new concept, 16, minus the Venetian bankers, well documented by Shakespeare in The Merchant of Venice, with those hypocritical Italians, hypocritical Catholics who morally outlaw usury, but then everybody's running to the Shylock to get money. When was the Bank of England founded? July 27th, 1694. So there you go. It's a fairly new concept, banking. But it's everywhere now. I'm telling you right now, it should not be in the spiritual world. And it is a sign of a decaying society when truth is sold. I mean, it's all right to charge a per diem if somebody is coming to visit you and take part in a spiritual retreat, but it should be just basic, food and whatever expenses are incurred hosting the people. There should be no profit in it, but that's what we do in the West, right? Is we commercialize everything. Everything. It's really kind of remarkable the degree to which usury has come to be a foundation of the Western system, and now the global system, because we won. What we won, I don't know. And how much longer we hold the crown, I don't know. Again, I don't mean to scare people, but things pop into my head, and I think maybe they should be said. Do not confuse what's going on in the West as a racial thing. And what is going on in the West is depopulation, demographic replacement, and decimation. That's a word that should be looked up. Decimation definition: the killing or destruction of a large proportion of a group or species. It's the perfect word. The killing of 1 in every 10 of a group of people as punishment for the whole group. Originally with reference to a mutinous Roman legion. So we are experiencing decimation. And if you want to know why we're not fighting back, just go over to your liberal neighbor's house and punch them in the face. Okay? The amount of brainwashing, the amount of mind control, the amount of programming that has gone into the Western liberal would put any cult leader to shame. And the way they've done it is brilliant. They've done it by making people think that they're bad if you don't want a 33% increase in your population in a decade, as Canada experienced, going from 31 million to 41 million. I was talking to a friend of mine tonight who lives in a small town about 2.5 hours west of Toronto. It's called St. Thomas. Interesting little town. It has produced Joe Thornton, the captain of the Boston Bruins, in the early mid-2000s, and Ryan Gosling, the actor. And Justin Bieber comes from a town just a few kilometers away, like 20, 30 kilometers away, called Woodstock. Very interesting that so many people who've gone big in the world come from this little small town blue-collar area west of Toronto. We are not experiencing decimation because of our religion, because we don't practice a religion anymore. We are not experiencing decimation because of our color, because people don't really hate white people. In fact, people love white people. And the reason I know this is I pay attention to little details, like the most requested race at sperm banks globally. Korea, India, globally. And it is hands down, at a rate of about 90-95%, women of any race want white genetics. They want half-white babies. I'm not saying this to be racist. I'm not saying this to demonstrate racial pride, because I think racial pride is a form of racism. I'm not proud to be white. I mean, what a stupid thing to be proud of. I didn't accomplish anything. Proud of my books, proud of the life I've led, but all those things are based on my individual decisions and my own discipline. Only a moron would be proud of their race. I kind of like being Scottish Canadian. That's a cultural thing. I do kind of like that, right? I don't know if I'd say I was proud of it, but I kind of like it. So if we're not experiencing decimation because of any of the things I just listed, why are we experiencing decimation? It's the culture we've created. There is no way to roll back the material standard in the world, which is the Western middle class. And it's across the board in the Five Eyes countries. It's New Zealand, it's Australia, it's Canada, it's the United States. Not so much Britain. It's interesting that it all started from Britain, but not really Britain. Hey, buddy, you're just inviting yourself in there, right? Pretty hard to stop a pit bull from getting into a room if you don't bolt the door. They just put that head down and press, and you got cement heads. So we are experiencing decimation because of our culture. Now, is our culture still viable? Is the capital system, the usury-based system, the Oklahoma land grab system, for those of you who've ever seen Far and Away with Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise, about Irish immigrants coming to America in the 1800s during the Oklahoma land grab. So back in the day, to lure people over, they would give land to people. And the land would be opened up on a certain day, and you couldn't go before then, and people would like race horses for a week to get to the land and to stake their plots. That's how America started. And Canada, no. Everywhere you went in Canada, you went under the banner of the Queen. The Queen owned everything. The Queen still owns everything in Canada. There is no sovereign wealth fund in Canada. What you get out of your Canada pension plan is what you put into it. There is no extra as a dividend of the resources of the country, despite the fact that we're one of the most resource-rich countries in the world. Now, there's places in the world where they do things differently. Libya, under Gaddafi, had a wealth dividend, a sovereign wealth fund, based on their oil. Norway has a sovereign wealth fund over $2 trillion US, and there's only 5 million Norwegians. And that's just based on their offshore drilling. They share it with the citizens. Okay? But Canada nonetheless had a nice middle class after World War II. It was the easiest time to be alive. I think the baby boomers are the luckiest generation ever. Okay? Hands down. And I'm not saying this out of any jealousy or anything. I mean, you get what you get in this life. One sec, dog left, closed door. You get what you get in this life. And never complain. Ingratitude in life is contempt for the Creator. I mean, you can have disappointment. I mean, don't get me wrong. You can certainly have disappointment, but don't let it ruin you. Don't let it take away your joie de vivre, your joy of life. But yeah, you feel disappointment. Sure, why not? I bolted the door. He's trying to ram that hammerhead in now, but he's not going to get in now. Not happening, buddy. Give it up. But you could, life in Canada and the United States was unbelievably easy in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Unbelievably easy. My my son's maternal grandfather, a gentleman by the name of Don Francesco Castro, born to a peasant family on one of the islands in the Azores in Portugal. One of, wait for it, 17 children. Comes over here, leaves the wife and the two daughters back in Portugal, comes over on his own, sleeps on the floor for a year, saves his money, puts a down payment on a house, brings his wife over, wait another year, bring the daughters over, and then they had one more child in Canada, a Canadian-born child, the baby of the family. I always liked him, Don Francesco. Frank. He was just a classy guy, man. Um, he came over here. He bought a modest house. I mean, at the time, it was a modest house in the early 70s. It's now worth over $1 million. He probably bought it for 5, 7, maybe 12,000 in the early 70s. Okay. He raised 3 children. His wife never worked. He worked at factories, and then for a while he worked as a janitor at a high school. They had a summer place. Wasn't a cottage or anything, but it was just like a a camper, a trailer down by the lake, about a couple hours outside of Toronto. But that trailer would be nice housing for the average American now. And here's the kicker. He never learned English. The man could not speak English. He did all of this, supported a wife and 3 children, coming over here illiterate to our language, with only his back, his determination to work, and his will. And he did it. He provided for a family. You see how that works? That was the baby boom generation. You could not have the same material standard of living he had now unless you were a successful lawyer, maybe a partner in a law firm, a tech entrepreneur, a really good tradesperson. But on a simple laborer's life, and ununionized labor at that, to do what he did, that was North America in the baby boom era. That was North America. It was the same thing in the United States. It was almost guaranteed that if you could just wake up every day, not get drunk, and show up for work, you could have a home and you could afford 2 or 3 kids. You didn't have to have a PhD. You didn't have to have a hedge fund. You didn't need any of those things. Why is it so different now? What changed? It's the money. The money. There's a strange symmetry to money and usury. You can see it. When we originally started fractional reserve banking, I think the fractional reserve was 1 to 4. So you could lend out 4 times what you had in reserves. And then in the 90s, and I remember this because a lot of financial reporters who were of, I don't want to say anti-banking, but they knew what it would do. Everybody in the G7 nations elasticized their fractional reserve to 1 to 20, which was a massive overproduction of money. It's a very curious thing they did right after the Cold War. And why did they wait till after the Cold War? Very interesting. I don't have an answer, but remember, just the fact that I've spoken the question aloud, that's all you need. You'll get the answer. Now, it used to be in the early 70s that the value of a home might be 2 times your annual salary before taxes. And taxes were minimal back then. And still, hospitals got built, roads got built, schools got built. How did they do it all? How did they do it all? How did anything get built? How did the highways in the United States get built before the Federal Reserve? Who funded them? What funded them? How did we do it before the corrupt money system that is strangling us now? Very interesting questions. I'm sure there's an economist out there that might be able to answer them, but maybe not. Because you can't make a career as an economist practicing an economics that nobody is buying. And the economics that people are buying now is the economics that bloats up JP Morgan, BlackRock, predatory economics. Now, because money is a man-made system, we cannot accrue any accidents to it. There can be no act of God in the monetary system because it's not a natural system, and an act of God can only occur in a natural system. Getting sick in your 30s or 40s and dying is an act of God. It happened in your body. It happened in the world. But it's not an act of God if you getting sick is the result of the medical regimen they started putting people through in the 70s, which is largely responsible, in my opinion, for the high levels of cancer today. And here I'm talking about what Dr. Jack Kruse talks about, the SV40 that they put into the vaccines in the 60s, simian virus 40. This is how far out these people plan. There are no accidents. And there are specifically no accidents in the financial world. I will admit to you that tonight's podcast is heavily influenced by watching The Big Short on Netflix last night, which is the story of the 2008 financial meltdown related to fraudulent housing mortgage bonds. Stars, what's Batman's name there? Christian Bale. Brad Pitt has a small role in it. Ryan Gosling from St. Thomas, Ontario has a small role in it. Steve Carroll generally a comedic actor, but played a very serious role in this movie. He's the guy from The Office, the American version. Brilliant movie. And it's all done on purpose. They know what they're doing. They do it in such a way that there's no fingerprints, there's no DNA, there's nothing that could ever tie them to it. But if you see it, you see it. Doesn't matter if I can prove it to you. It is what it is as I tell you it is. But as a general philosophical principle, it is impossible for an act of God to occur in a man-made system. If a building is built 20 stories tall and it falls over one day, and there was no earthquake, there were no 200-kilometer-an-hour winds, there's no tsunami, it's not near the beach, it just literally crumbles and falls one day. Is that an act of God? No. The mayor's office and the various city agencies will determine what caused that building to fall, and the liable parties will be sued out of commercial existence and probably lose significant portions of their personal holdings in subsequent civil suits brought by the families of people killed when the building collapsed. Because it's not an act of God. Because a construction company and subcontractors built the building, and no natural force knocked it over, so it cannot be an act of God. That means somebody is liable. Somebody decided it was a good idea to package mortgages as bonds. Somebody decided that nobody would ever scratch below the surface of these bonds and look at the underlying architecture of them, the creditworthiness of the people being given mortgages. Nobody ever looked into that. This all starts with Slick Willie, by the way. Everybody in America can have a home. He was trying to bring back the 70s and the 90s, late 90s, right? Now, you could maybe say the character of people failed, that when they made it so easy to get a mortgage, a bunch of people just went out and bought properties with $5,000 down and rented the condos or rented the houses and just went into business because they made money so easy to get. Maybe money shouldn't have been that easy to get, but that was the decision of the banking sector and the Federal Reserve, wasn't it? Everything that happens in our economy as it exists today is the result of human engineering. Okay? Now, a lot of the engineering in the financial system that we're living through now is what I would call, now wait for it, because I'm literally inventing this term in situ, on the spot. Temporal engineering. Okay? And what I mean by temporal engineering, it's a decision that's made in 1972, and they mathematically calculate that the effects of it won't materialize until 1998. And nobody will ever put it together. It's also interesting, and I guess money is the talk tonight. I didn't have this one planned. I literally had no idea in my head when I sat down in front of the microphone. Not an idea. But this spirit just comes into me, this narrative spirit. Weird. Now, I pointed out on a recent podcast the epochal year of 1972. 1972 is the year Nixon took us off the gold standard. 1972 is the year that I think Nixon went to China, but not until Pierre Elliott Trudeau in Canada went first and paved the way for him. And there was another thing that happened in 1972. I can't. Oh, yes. The World Economic Forum was founded, and a young Klaus Schwab was appointed as its head in Davos, Switzerland, which is a banking center in the world, sort of adjacent to the whole Western clique. Switzerland's a whole other animal. It goes back to the Venetian bankers and circumvents the Bank of England crowd. And the Bank of England is the genesis or the father of most of the central banks in the Western world now. Certainly the American, the Canadian, the Australian, and the New Zealand Bank. But before that, you had the Venetian bankers, and the Venetian bankers were connected to Switzerland. There's always been this connection between Italy and Switzerland. That's why the Swiss Guard protects the Pope in Vatican City. They're all money people. They're all bankers. Bankers and kitty pimps. I shouldn't have said that. That's probably the kind of thing that makes people afraid to listen to me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to scare you. Right. I'm sorry. There's a character in The Big Short, played by Brad Pitt, who used to be a big-time trader and walked away and found God. Not God in any religious sense, but he found a conscience and didn't want to be the part of destroying the world anymore. Very interesting character. And he lives on a farm in a rural part of the United States, and he's still got this license in place and some junior hedge fund guys who don't have the license he has to make the trades, but who are aware of the fact that the housing market is going to implode and they want to short it. Shorting in the market is where you make money on somebody's anticipated failure. Okay? A very bizarre concept to short. So they call him up, and he's not interested. He doesn't want anything to do with the money world anymore. And he explains to these two young traders how he's recycling his own feces as fertilizer and his own urine as fertilizer for his garden. He's basically living the same way as me, except not in Costa Rica and not in an earth bag house, but pretty close to that. And he's a multimillionaire, but he just isn't interested anymore. Now, money also creates a world in which desires get inflamed. Money is magic in paper. And I say that because it can manifest any desire, any earthly desire. Money can't buy you God, it can't buy you contentment, it can't buy you happiness, but it'll buy everything else. It'll buy all the distractions that make you stop thinking about those things. It'll buy everything else. And so it's a wish fulfillment. It's a genie in a bottle. It's literally the djinn. Money is the djinn. What do you wish for? It's been a very interesting time living here among people who have little experience with money. People think I'm joking. I talk to people off air. They think I'm joking when I say that I had to kind of press my wife to get a bank account. She never had a bank account in her life. She's 52, July 29th. 52, and she never had a bank account in her life. She just got one 4 years ago, 5 years ago. She loves them now. You know why? Because the SWIFT system transfers money from my bank account in Canada to her account. And this whole magic happens where all of a sudden she goes to the bank and goes, oh my God, I'll use, Canadian or American money. There's $1,000 there. And they literally can't understand money. They don't understand the regulation of it, the investing of it, the preservation of it. For simple people who've lived on the land, for campesinos and peasants, you throw a bunch of money at them, they'll be dead in 2 or 3 years. They'll do themselves in. because they have no experience with controlling themselves or anything like that. This is part of what's going on with my brother-in-law, Stephen. Okay? So I overindulged him. I decided I was going to help him because mainly because he made this commitment to bring Vanessa's other 4 children to the mountain and support them. And I thought, you know what? That guy's grown up quite a bit. I'm going to help him. He hasn't really been drinking for 5 years. He's been off the cocaine for 6 years. Tell your brother-in-law to come over here. I want to talk to him. He comes over, I have a talk with him. I say, I got this to get done. We're going to build another house. I'll put you in charge of that. Boom. He's right back to drinking. He doesn't even have the money yet. This is just in anticipation of the money. You see? I remember there was one time about 6 years ago, maybe 7, right at the beginning of my relationship with Rosemary. And the international money transfer system had just been put in at my bank online. So you can basically, just as a client with a savings or a checking account, you can just go online now and transfer up to $30,000 Canadian, which is about 22,000 US a day. There's a bit, and all you need is the international bank account number of where it's going and the person's name and their address and their national ID. And you can do that. I pay all my bills over here with transfers. So when I'm getting ready to build something like my shower and extra toilet, uh, I get my brother-in-law to make a list of the material. I send that list. My wife types it out on WhatsApp and sends it to the hardware store, and they send us what's called a pro forma, which is just the price of everything and the total with tax. It's not a bill. They just I have the bank details for my hardware store registered with my Canadian bank, so I just transfer the money directly to the hardware store. Takes about 3 days, and then they just come up on the 4th day with the delivery truck, and all this stuff gets dropped off. It's like magic, right? I don't see why we need crypto. I mean, I can't remember the last time I used paper, right? I mean, the last time I had paper money. I mean, I went to Panama, bought everything with my card. I hardly even carry cash around, and I don't think the only reason you need cash is coke or hookers. I don't know what I'm speaking from a male perspective. I don't know, ladies, what you would use cash for, but from a male perspective, there's no other reason to use cash. It's hookers or coke, you know. Um, oh, maybe like illegal venison or elk meat you're buying from a local poacher or hunter or something, you know. But even he would probably take a transfer. And back when I was getting started up here, money was harder to come by. Like I spent half my time looking for contracts, and I was existing in what's called the gig economy. So I would go on gig websites and I would bid for contracts, like so and so needs this book done, and what do you bid? And it's like a reverse auction. And they do an interview with you to make sure you're competent to do it, but you go in and you do this stuff and you get the work done, and that's it. And um but I didn't need a lot of money, you know. First few years I was with my wife, we lived on $400, $500, $600 a month. Didn't need any more money. Um and the first time I did a wire transfer to my wife, or was it a wire transfer, or did I get one of my clients to pay me through her bank account? One or the other. I said to my wife, I said, look, I'll speak in US dollars. I said, honey, I have $3,500 coming into your account. Okay? We need that money to last 3 months. Okay? Because all my other clients are on a 90-day deliverable. We're not going to have any more money for 3 months. Okay? I got to pay the internet, we got to pay the electricity, and we got to eat. And $1,000 a month is way more than enough to do that here. Push comes to shove, I can live on $600 a month over easily up here. She smiles, she nods, she says, okay. Money comes in. After 3 weeks, she starts to drop hints that we don't have money. You gotta be kidding me. I literally just sat you down 4 weeks ago. I said we have $3,500 to live on for 3 months. Now, for those of you who think, well, Bruce doesn't take care of his family that well, just remember, I don't have any bills. I don't have any property tax. I don't have any mortgage. I don't have any rent. Okay? So that's basically just food and bills. And at the time, I smoked cigars, and my cigar habit was probably about $200 a month, which is the same cigar habit would be $1,800 a month in Canada with the taxes they put on cigars. But good tobacco was really cheap here. I said, what do you mean we don't have any money? And she starts to talk this kind of gibberish. Like, well, you bought this. And I said, okay. And I literally sit down with a pen. Okay, yeah, I bought that. Yeah, Anything else? Yeah, that's $400. There's $3,500 in your account. Took me a day and a half to get out of her. She bought a headstone for her father's grave. God bless her. I didn't really get angry. As punishment, we ate rice and beans for 2 months. Like, no condiments, just a little bit of salt, a little bit of rice, and food is my wife's thing. Her favorite dish is shrimp and rice. She loves steak. She loves pork. She loves chicken. She loves really good fruits. She loves yogurt. My wife's a foodie. She loves food. Food is her thing. She has no bad habits, okay? So our food bill can be a little excessive at times. And she likes to cook for her nieces and nephews, okay? And I don't mind that at all. But yeah, and this is what I'm trying to tell you. And she had never had that much money in her life at one time in her possession. And by in her possession, I mean it was in her bank account, even though she knew it wasn't hers. Because I didn't have a Costa Rican bank account. Okay? And I forget what else happened. Um, I think I lost my bank card. And so, yeah, she was the only way we could get money. Now, eventually I got a new bank card. My bank actually FedExed it to me here in Costa Rica, which was really nice of them. But that was all the money we had to live on. And she went out and she spent $2,000 on a headstone for her father's grave. And I said, okay, you've got 10 brothers and sisters. I want everybody to pay part of that and give me some of the money back. And they didn't. Okay? They didn't. So I don't say that to belittle or berate my wife or humiliate her on my podcast. The exact opposite. She's all heart. That's a perfect story to explain my wife to you. But that is the level of impulse control these people have around money. Zero. So, and it's not their fault. I mean, my wife was raised with very little money. The only time they had a little bit of money is when my now deceased father-in-law would sell a nice piece of hardwood and they'd have some money. But other than that, they lived completely as homesteaders. They had pigs, they had goats, they had chickens, they had rock Cornish hens, they had a garden, they grew yucca, they had a tilapia pond. All that's gone now since my father-in-law passed. None of his sons keep up the old ways. Everybody goes to the grocery store and buys everything. This is a huge issue with me, by the way. Huge issue. I'm saying, like, what is the point of having? There's like 300 hectares of land in this family, and they don't use it. Okay. Now, for those of you listening to the Talamanca Review who know what's coming, 9 out of 10 North Americans now would want to come and work the 300 hectares for the next 15 or 20 years and ride out the collapse of the Western and probably the global economy, eating good food and living simply. The people I live with, they're going in the other direction. It's 1972 for them in North America, because they're just getting into this whole money thing and everything. Very weird the way things work. I don't know who the hell that was. So, what I'm really talking about tonight is money and how it's a man-made system. And there can be no acts of God in a man-made and a man-engineered and a man-managed system. They've tried to convince us that money is it's its own organic system because, hey, it grows like an apple tree. Money doesn't grow. That's just a bunch of bullshit. They just elasticize it. Okay? This whole system we've been living in is a house of cards. And they're blowing it over now. And the people who are most attached to it are us. And this is why they have to decimate us. Because they don't want the consciousness, the memory of this freedom and individuality persisting. Something else is coming in. And they can't do that if we still exist. So they have to destroy us. And don't think the world hates you. It's not the world. It's Klaus Schwab and these people. Okay? That's who's doing it. So, we're in the midst of a decimation, which is part of the reason I came here. It'll be very difficult for people to have children and have a normal life in North America now. Very difficult, if not impossible. Very sad. You know, so baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z, 4 generations. And it's all over. All over. Isn't that something, eh? Didn't last that long. Okay? Now, you can see the intentionality of the decimation now. This is where it all comes together. The vaccines, the food production plants being burned, shorting the dollar, putting us into poverty, and that poverty puts us in dependence because we don't live on land anymore. And when you don't live on land, you are completely dependent. Not many people really stop to consider the risk they took leaving land and moving to the city. Most families did it 100, 120 years ago at the beginning of the 20th century. Some stragglers waited until after World War II, and then they really started to strangle the family farm in the 80s. For those of you who are old enough will remember Farm Aid with Willie Nelson and, trying to save the American farm. And if you talk to any farmer, it was the banking system that did in the farms. All they have to do is change the system a little bit. Rezone the land or bribe some county officials to quadruple the land taxes in 1 year, you're screwed. 4 generations of corn farming are gone because the whole model was based on land taxes that went up with inflation, which was about maybe 1.5% a year. And all of a sudden your land taxes go up 400%. Well, we have to raise the land tax because this is the value of the land. Developers want to come in here and build a resort, and that's what we will yield from the developers if they annually if they built a resort. We're not telling you you can't farm anymore, but you got to pay the municipality the taxes we're not going to get because you want to farm and you want to keep this land in your family. Decimation. We're getting to the end now. And the Gentile is the new Jew. Because it's going to be, for those who survive, they will survive through diaspora by going elsewhere and practicing their culture in their heart. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca Review.